Say what you like about Twilight, love or hate, it's difficult to deny the overall entertaining quality of the fight scene in the end of Breaking Dawn. Okay, yes, it was just a would-be vision of Alice's, but it really did have everything. It had heartbreaking deaths, satisfying deaths, atmospheric energy that just had our eyes glued to the screen or the pages in the book. Then it just cuts back to Alice informing Arrow that what he just seen was his future, and for the first time in millennia, Arrow experienced the emotion of fear. I didn't know how I felt after realizing it was all just a vision. I had already begun processing so many characters' deaths, and then it's like, oh, they're still alive. So I sat there and worked out everything that would happen if the fight really did, well, happen. The repercussions, the aftermath, and basically in a nutshell, how Twilight would never be the same. So let's take a look. So before I start, I just want to say that the outcome of this fight actually happening completely changes the entire dynamic of the Twilight universe, which is pretty exciting from an entertainment standpoint. So let's take a look at the battle. Let's go through the deaths and take a look at how they impact the future of the series going forward. So before the battle ensues, we see an actual death occur that wasn't part of the vision, and that was of course Irina. She believed that she was correctly informing the Volturi on the creation of an immortal child by the Cullens. She seen Renesmee. Arrow seen Renesmee through Irina's thoughts. Irina's mistake was jumping the gun, not actually confronting the Cullens and assuming the worst, as she had experienced the wrath of the Volturi from her own mother Sasha's creation of an immortal child. She knows the death sentence she's enforced on the Cullens and was horrified to see her own family standing opposing the Volturi army. She quickly realizes her mistake, apologizes to her family, and accepts her fate when she doesn't resist her execution. This creates a permanent hatred for the Volturi from the Denali standpoint, but it motivates them to fight, even if they have to restrain themselves at the beginning, or be restrained. So the battle kicks off after Arrow kills Carlisle by decapitation. Now this was a massive death, a huge death. This was Carlisle Cullen, a mainstay in the Twilight series, the leader and the father of the Olympic Coven. He had always done his best, the best he could, and he upheld very strict morals as a vampire in terms of how he behaved. He gave constant guidance to Edward. He took Bella in as one of his own. He saved Rosalie, saved Emmett, he saved Esme. He impacted Alice's life so positively, and he helped Jasper control his bloodlust. With Carlisle gone, the Cullens have now lost an irreplaceable individual. Esme had lost her eternal mate. His death was so unthinkable that I don't believe any of the Olympic Coven would have even registered it. Arrow's evil smile was so apparent for a reason. He had just eliminated the leader from the biggest threat that the Volturi faced. In his mind, the rest of the Olympic Coven could now be easily picked apart until he had Alice in his grasp. Then we witnessed the death of Jasper, which, like Carlisle, was another shocking death. Jasper was an incredibly skilled fighter, and he held himself very well on the battlefield. Jane intervened and used her gift of inflicting a body-twitching, body-wrenching, burning pain which incapacitates Jasper, and he too follows Carlisle to death when he's killed by Felix. This devastates Alice beyond comprehension, but she cannot allow herself to lose focus on the fight, as it was bigger than Jasper alone. Jasper's death would have been another massive blow to the Coven. He was extremely experienced and had such an impact on Alice's life and the rest of the Coven, Bella more so than others. He gave her guidance, and he even opened up to her about his own past, creating a strong connection, a strong bond between the two. This would have been extremely hard for Bella to process alongside the others. Seth Clearwater also dies when he's subdued by Jane's pain gift and has his neck broken, dying slowly as he suffocates. This was quite a painful death to watch and a really sad moment. Jacob immediately detects Seth's death, and it forces him to fight his instincts to go back and protect his pack. Leah, Seth's own sister, follows suit when she sacrifices herself in order to save Esme Cullen from what was sure to be certain death. Leah falls into the open crevice after pulling a Volturi vampire off Esme. Leah was always determined to prove herself, her strength and her courage from the moment she turned into a shapeshifter. Despite her death being hard to watch and read, like her brothers, I don't have any doubt that Leah would want to go out by performing such an act of bravery. In addition, the fact that she sacrificed herself to save a vampire shows that she was looking past the centuries of disconnection between the two species. With Bella using her shield more prominently and now more efficiently, the Cullens and their allies were more heavily protected, and it was time for the Volturi to take a loss. After Jasper's death, Alec's actual fighting vulnerability is completely exposed when he's easily taken down by Emmett, followed by his decapitation. This highlights that although Alec's supernatural gift was devastatingly powerful, he was bang average in terms of physical strength because he was changed so young. The Volturi now have just lost one of the most powerful offensive vampires in their guard, which was a very surprising death for everyone to witness. Santiago followed suit when he was killed by Jacob, further depleting the Volturi ranks of one of their most skilled warriors. Things got worse for Arrow when Dimitri, the most powerful tracker vampire to ever exist, was killed by Edward after arrogantly thinking he had tossed him into the open crevice. Jane's death wasn't long after that, and what a satisfying moment it was. Justice for everything she had done beforehand and the countless people she had harmed by taking full advantage of her pain gift. As she was responsible for Jasper and Seth's death, Alice took immense pleasure in subduing her before Sam finished her off. The Denalis took their revenge for their mother and Irina by quickly exposing the rust of Caius' fighting skills, tearing his head off quite quickly after he advanced onto the battlefield, followed by the Romanians bulldozing through Marcus, something he had actually longed for since the death of his wife Didyme. Arrow literally cannot believe what has happened, what is happening right in front of his very eyes. Regardless of the outcome, regardless of a Volturi victory, he has witnessed the death of his two vampire brothers, he's witnessed the death of Jane and Alec, Dimitri and many others. The Volturi ranks have been absolutely decimated. Arrow had no choice but to intervene to try to sway the battle in his favour, but even he was no match for the combined skill and teamwork of Bella and Edward. He was beheaded and his body torched by Bella, leaving no way for a return. So, how does this affect the overall dynamic of the Twilight story if this fight actually happened? Well, for starters, there was literally no more Volturi. All three of the leaders were now dead. All of the most powerfully offensive vampires were killed. Jane, Alec, Santiago, Dimitri, Arrow, Caius, Marcus, all gone, amongst many other Volturi Coven members. So who was going to take over? What would happen next? While the Cullens would deal with the devastating loss of Carlisle and Jasper, possibly returning into solitude, Vladimir and Stefan could finally reclaim their rule over the vampire nation by offering remaining Volturi members a place in their new coven. Would they sit in Volterra as the Volturi did? Probably, most likely not. With the news of Arrow's death widespread, the vampire world would most likely rejoice at the Coven's demise, but I don't believe things would become hostile across the globe just yet. But I do believe the Romanians would find themselves challenged for control of the vampire hierarchy. The Volturi had ruled for millennia. They were the complete and total enforcement of the vampire world, and despite other challengers stepping forward, as I mentioned, the Cullens would be in the spotlight whether they wanted to be or not. They were the ones who had destroyed the Volturi, even though they did have a lot of help from other vampires and the shapeshifters. It would still be their name, their coven, that would ultimately take the credit. Many vampires were used to some sort of rule, and I've no doubt that a lot of them would come to the Cullens to ask them to rule in place of the Volturi, something I also believe the Cullens would refuse, definitely refuse such an offer. So if this battle had indeed happened, you can see for yourself how it changes the face of the vampire world. I mean, what is Twilight without Arrow, Caius, Jane, Carlisle, just to name a few. They're such mainstay characters. I've got a Twilight playlist with multiple theories and explanations right here if you want to continue your journey down the Twilight path. If not, make sure to check out the channel for other vampire franchises that might suit your taste a little bit better.